Now, after finding fame in the band Madness, lead singer Suggs has turned his hand to acting, television, and presenting radio, and is now starring in a one-man show all about his life. First, let's see the Nutty Boys in action. Oh, like it was yesterday.
Welcome to Something for the Weekend, Suggs. Those videos, they were so original at the time, weren't they? How important were they for the band?
Yeah, very, yeah. You know, I mean, we were 7 extroverts, luckily. You know, at the time, I mean, this was a whole new phenomenon, making videos. No,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It was new. There was no MTV. There were very few places to show them. I mean, Top of the Pops would show 1 video a week if you were lucky. And we put a lot of effort into them because we were all fighting for a bit of, you know, space. And there was a theatrical costumier in Camden called Berman and Nathan's that let us pretty much take anything we wanted. Brilliant. So over the years, we dressed as... I think the band's career fizzled out when we ran out of things to dress up as. From bumblebees to coppers. Yeah, that was it, yeah.
I mean, the band's still together now, but you weren't together for that long, were you, the first time round? How many was it, 4 or 5 years?
It was only 4 or 5 years before it started to disintegrate, yeah. And then it was about 8 years before we played together again in 1992. So it is weird, yeah. All that work was condensed then, but in fact, we've had a longer career since.
Do you regret that? Sorry, I mean, do you ever regret splitting up the first time round?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, we were still on the tail end of the way bands were behaving in the 60s. You know, you made 3 records a year, you toured, you kept touring and touring and touring. If we'd had a break, possibly we wouldn't have needed to split up.
Well, Madness kind of epitomised, like, 80s, you know, the 80s kind of in itself. I mean, did you realise that when you were in the band? Was that something you were at all aware of?
No, not at all, no. I mean, you know, there were a lot of other things going on. I mean, there was, like, new romanticism and stuff in the 80s, but we definitely felt we were on the other side of the road doing our own thing, yeah. I
was just talking to you before the show. It was an amazing time when Top of the Pops was still on, wasn't it? And you were... How old when you first went on Top of the Pops?
18, yeah.
So young. And I remember seeing Madness for the first time. Top of the Pops was great because you selected what you were going to be by watching Top of the Pops. I saw him come on. I was like, that's what I'm going to be, a rude boy. You know, me and my brother were like, let's go down Watford Market and get Stay Press and all that sort of stuff. But Top of the Pops was like that in those days.
Totally, yeah. It's funny because in my one-man show I talk about it. I can tell how old the audience are when if I mention Top of the Pops, it gets a woo. But no, of course you hear all the new romantics talking about the first time they saw David Bowie or Mark Bolan, or, you know, it had a huge impact. I mean, it was the biggest programme on television and everybody watched it, including your mum and your dad. Your dad, of course, would moan and go, that's not singing, he's just screaming. Long-haired layabout. Yeah. But, of course, he'd sit there and wait for Pound's people to appear, wouldn't he? And your mum would just go, oh, they're all nice, but I can't understand it.
But, I mean, you guys, you've lasted the test of time. I mean, you've got Madness festivals that... What do they call the...
We had the Madstock festivals in the 90s, yeah, and we've just done a 2-day weekender called the House of Fun at Butlins in Minehead, which was quite a scene.
And really popular, I would imagine.
It was great, yeah. It was funny, because we started to ask people who else would want to join us on the bill, and pretty much everyone did, you know.
You like people like Rob DeBank and...
That's right, Rob DeBank, and Jerry Dammers came down with his band, and there were all sorts of great DJs and bands.
Tim was there, weren't you, Tim?
I wasn't there for that one. Hey, tell us about this one-man show, then, because all these things you're talking about now, you talk about in a kind of stories, stand-up, music, is that right?
Thank you very much, Tim. That's been a hard thing to explain, exactly, because people have said, is it stand-up? And it's not. I'm no comedian. I'm relatively amusing sometimes. But what happened, it was my 50th birthday, and I was lying in the bath, and my cat died. It fell off a glass shelf and died right beside me. And I don't know, my daughters had just left home, I was 50, and suddenly my cat dying sort of tipped me over the edge.
It was the catalyst, was it?
It was the catalyst. Thank you very much. There you go. Thank you. And I just started to think about what an incredible life I've had, you know, and how fragile life is and how things can come and go. And just started writing a show, which starts with my childhood and goes through my life in Madness and then all the other weird and bizarre things I've done.
So it's like self-exploration, then? Do you kind
of... It was a bit of that. It was a bit of that, without getting too maudlin. You know, I never really knew my dad, so it was interesting finding out what happened to him. But, you know, it's all in the context of, you know, of a rather amusing career.
We'll talk a bit more about your family, mate. Let's have a look at a clip of it, what it looks like.
Madness, well, madness, they call it madness.
Top of the pops. We got in a bit of trouble for messing about and not miming properly. When I told the police that I thought the cause of the earthquake was a madness concert in Finsbury Park, they were sceptical. Only 4 years into the band's chart-topping success, and cracks were already starting to appear. The Sky Television and British Satellite Broadcasting. Sky Television is, of course, now a household name. You can guess which one I was on the phone. I'd rather be surrounded by my noisy, argumentative gang of fools. I realise I am home, and I'm surrounded by love. Love, love. Even truer than the true bits what I've already told you.
A little bit of everything. You are funny.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah,
The tour's still going.
Yeah, well, I'm starting again on the 20th of January in Oxford, and I'm going through to the end of February.
Quickly tell us about your family then, because your dad disappeared when you were very young, didn't he?
Yeah. I just found out some bizarre things. He remarried. I mean, I thought he died a lot younger than... I mean, I thought I was 3 when he died, but in fact I was 14. So it was a real shame that there was a possibility that we could have met somewhere along the way. And the bizarre thing being that, you know, 14, 15 was when I was turning myself into Suggs and just becoming something, and the band were kind of in their formative stage. So if he'd been around a couple of years longer, then possibly we would have met, because I would have been famous and he would have got in touch with me, possibly.
And your mum was a singer?
My mum was a singer, yes. That's right, yeah, she was a good singer, my mum, yeah. She won Jazz Newcomer Melody Maker in the 60s.
Didn't you spend your youth going around the clubs with her?
Yeah, she spent a lot of time in clubs, but yeah, mostly we were in London, yeah, mostly.
And if you hadn't made it into Madness, what do you think what do you think you would have ended up doing?
Goodness knows, yeah. I mean, I hadn't any intention to become a singer. I knew the guys in the band as friends, and then suddenly I heard this fact that they were going to start a band, and they suggested well, in fact, we went to see a film. It's called American Graffiti, and I was singing as I came out the steps of the cinema, and that was the first time that anyone suggested I might be the singer in the band, and it went from there, really.
And of course, Suggs, you weren't born Suggs, were you?
No, I wasn't, no.
Where did you get the name from?
Well, I was, a lot of kids were writing, you know, up to that point, writing on walls had pretty much meant scribbling, you know, Mr. Pringle is gay, or, you know, other sort of nonsense. Suddenly this sort of three-dimensional coloured writing, people writing their tags or whatever, had appeared from New York. And Graham McPherson wasn't quite right, and the only other nicknames I've managed to get from my imaginative classmates were Gray and Mac. So my mum had an encyclopedia of jazz musicians, and I just put a pin in at random, and I got this guy, Peter, and I thought, Peter? Well, that's no bloody good, is it? But his second name was Suggs, and for some peculiar reason, I started calling myself Suggs, and it stuck.
Does anyone call you Graham?
My mum and the Inland Revenue.
And on that note...
Listen, we have those, Suggs, later. We'll show it when we cook with you in a minute. A clip of you on Young Ones. Do you remember when you were on Young Ones?
Yeah, yes, a lot of people still do,
a great moment, that. So Suggs is staying with us all morning for some cooking. We should just got him to do his one-man show, couldn't he?
Yeah,
Make sure you get your questions in for us. Tweet us at